1,000 years or something like that. So this is the, the high point.
So there's two main export regions for ice coming to the Arctic. So Fram Strait, which is on the between Greenland and Spitsbergen, is where most of the ice comes out of the Arctic. The stuff that comes out through Fram Strait is mostly first-year ice. It's kind of thinner ice. And then there's Nares Strait and the Canadian Arctic Archipelago.
The decline of Arctic sea ice has been far faster than would be forecast in the decline of Arctic sea ice has been far faster than would be forecast in climate model projections. You shouldn't think of today as being the warmest day or the warmest month over the last 100 years. You should think of it as being the coolest month for the next 100. Not the most anomalously low sea ice extent. It's the most sea ice we'll see until we die, and for the next 1,000 years or something like that. So this is the, the high point.
So there's two main export regions for ice coming to the Arctic. So Fram Strait, which is on the between Greenland and Spitsbergen, is where most of the ice comes out of the Arctic. The stuff that comes out through Fram Strait is mostly first-year ice. It's kind of thinner ice. And then there's Nares Strait and the Canadian Arctic Archipelago.
It's 2020 right now, and these studies from 1997 that said the sea ice would be seasonally ice free, the Arctic would be seasonally ice free in 2030. It was always a pie in the sky, it could never happen thing, and it's happening.
I've been going to the Canadian High Arctic for about 40 years, and in the space of my lifetime, you can see these things dramatically change.
Circulation of ice in the Arctic Ocean is driven by a massive current known as the Beaufort Gyre. The current has the effect of pushing the thickest, oldest ice to the northern shores of Canada and Greenland, near the entrance to the Nares Strait.
So Nares Strait is over, up against the kind of Canadian Arctic Archipelago in northern Greenland. And that's where the oldest ice is in the Arctic, and also the thickest ice. And so the ice that comes through Nares Strait tends to be much thicker. This is the ice that is the oldest ice in the Arctic, and Nares Strait is the way that we can lose this ice. And that's a concern because it's the older ice. That's the stuff that is really useful, as for instance, for polar bears to hunt. They want the thick ice to hunt on. Seals like thick ice because they can then, put their burrows deeper into the ice and protect themselves from polar bears. So the thick ice is really the important ice in the Arctic. Most of that old ice comes down through Nares Strait.
In winter, an ice jam or ice arch forms at the entrance to the Nares Strait, blocking passage of all but the smallest pieces of ice. As springtime comes, that ice arch gives way, allowing a large flow of thick ice to move through.
If you look at the duration of the ice arch over this, we have a 25-year record. It's decreasing by about 1 week per year. As the ice gets thinner and these arches become less stable, we'll see more of its tendency for the ice to exit the region throughout the whole year. And that just means we're going to lose more of it over time.
And last year, Canada designated an area of the Canadian High Arctic as the last ice area. It is designated as the place where the ice will last the longest.
I think most people think that by the middle of the century, we'll be able to, either through reductions in use of carbon or through carbon capture, we'll be able to start cooling the planet down, right? And then, of course, if these refuges then can repopulate the Arctic, right? But if the ice is leaving this area, if it's more dynamic and it may not persist as long as we think it is, then we have to rethink our ideas that we actually have some refuges for these marine mammals.
And I'm just stunned, at how rapidly that's changed, and I don't see how ice will persist in the so-called last ice area